let's go into the wonderful benefits of astragalus. And guys, this right here, when you look at it, this is basically all the different components of the immune system. I know I've shown this to you before. This is what I go into in a lot of detail with our Make Immune System Strong Again. So guys, if you haven't registered for this, we are going to be doing a webinar version this Saturday, November 6th, 9 o'clock Central Time. We are going to be doing a webinar. A lot of you said, yes, I want it. I think we had over 200 people request it. So we have set up the webinar, 9 o'clock a.m. Central Time, November 6th. All you have to do is go to the top of the page, go ahead and you'll see the Eventbrite link. Go ahead and register for it. There is a charge for it because of the cost of putting on a webinar is expensive. It will be well worth it, I can promise you that. And then 24 hours before, we will be emailing you a link to be able to join the webinar. And this is your personal link. Please don't share this with other people. But we go over this in detail about all the different types of immune responses, about the importance of your barriers, the importance of your immediate response innate immune system, things like neutrophils, your antigen-presenting cells like your macrophages, your dendritic cells, your natural killer cells, and then your adaptive immune system with your T cell response, your CD4, your CD8 cytotoxic T cells, and then even your B cells, which are producing antibodies. Just as a quick note, guys, why are they trying to do so many different boosters? Because they're not working in certain people. The boosters are because if you actually measured that, those people who are having no response to the you-know-what is because they have either a low amount of immune cells, white blood cells, or even specifically as you go down, they actually don't even have any B cells. And how are you supposed to produce something from nothing? You can't. There's no amount of injection. There's no amount of stimulation, artificial, that's going to get you to be able to produce antibodies if you don't have any kind of B cells, which is why there are so many different types of breakthrough you-know-whats, okay? This is your immune system right here, and we go over it in detail, in a lot of detail. Specifically some of the best things in order to help you with it. I even go pretty quickly about how we even look at things from a supplement perspective, an herb perspective, and you might even say when we're done, I've been doing it completely wrong, okay? Because you have to, there's different tests that you can do that test all of these different immune system responses, guys. And just remember this, most of the problems that you're dealing with, especially ladies, are dealing with either chronic inflammation or due to chronic mental stress. That's the two biggest things. And so all your hormones and things like that are all secondary, okay? So let's talk about astragalus, okay? And one of the reasons why is because when you look at astragalus, the biggest thing about astragalus is that it will stimulate the formation of stem cells. Dr. Nate, what on earth are stem cells? Well, stem cells are basically the immature cells that are stimulated within the bone marrow. So guys, your white blood cells, your red blood cells, your platelets, et cetera, are all made within the bone marrow, and then they go and they'll differentiate into different parts of the body. Your T cells actually differentiate in your thymus gland. That's why they're called T cells. Excuse me. So one of the best things about astragalus is its ability to be able to stimulate stem cell formation. There's other things too that can stimulate stem cell formation. This is why things like far infrared sauna, chiropractic, all of those things. And I've seen this happen clinically, how it stimulates the production of stem cells and can quickly increase someone's overall white blood cell count. But I want to show you some really interesting things in regards to what I've read about astragalus. And I've gotten all of these different things from the internet. Yes, you get it from the internet. Don't let anyone talk down to you because you get something on the internet, because everything is on the internet. This comes from the National Library of Medicine, specifically the website pubmed.gov. So here's the first one. This is amazing, okay? The immunomodulatory effects of astragalus polysaccharide. Now let me stop there. Polysaccharide. You mean it's a sugar? You mean the constituents that are helping you are a sugar? Yes. Well, I thought I was supposed to go keto. This is derived from a long chain sugar. the immunomodulatory effects of astragalus polysaccharide on human peripheral blood mononuclear cells co-cultured with cervical cancer cell lines. So basically what they're saying is the effects of astragalus on white blood cell production. So here's what they found. They found that astragalus polysaccharide might be able to modulate immune responses and improve anti-tumor effects through increasing the proliferation of white blood cells and decreasing inhibitory cytokine secretion as critical mediators of immune suppression in the tumor microenvironment. That's a lot of big words, but basically what they're saying is that astragalus will actually help facilitate a proper immune response against tumor cells, aka cancer, and then also be able to decrease some of these inhibitory chemicals that tumor cells secrete in order to try to hide from the immune system. So what they're talking about right here is the effect of astragalus on cancer, okay? Now, here's another one. Astragalus polysaccharide improved the proliferation and insulin secretion of mouse pancreatic beta cells induced by high glucose and palmitic acid, okay? So what they did in mice is that they said, okay, if we give a high dose of glucose, which is basically this time of year, in which we're eating Halloween candy, and we're doing our pre-celebratory Thanksgiving, during Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving, pre-Christmas, during Christmas, after Christmas, 2 weeks after New Year's, in which we dump a bunch of sugar. And then, so what they're saying in here is that astragalus has an effect on people who are type 2 diabetic. So here's what they found. They said this: the current drugs for treatment of type 2 diabetes mellitus, which is some of these real, like these insulin, they make you more insulin sensitive, okay? So these drugs, though, will have a very negative effect specifically on the gastrointestinal system. So if you see people on some of these different type 2 diabetes medications and you ask them, how's your gastrointestinal system? And they're going to say, long term, like, I have so much pain in my gastrointestinal system. The reason why is because it can damage the microbiome within the colon. So they actually do say that current drugs for treatment of type 2 diabetes mellitus can cause side effects after long time use. In this study, the effect of astragalus polysaccharide on dysfunctional insulin cells was investigated to clarify whether astragalus polysaccharide could be a novel drug for treatment of type 2 diabetes mellitus. And I guess there's a difference between type 1, there's a difference between type 2. Type 1 is autoimmune. Type 2 is basically, I can't hear insulin anymore, eventually leading into what is known as beta cell pancreatic fatigue, in which the cells just get so fatigued because you've been running those cells ragged and they just can't function and they're extremely tired, okay? So here's what their conclusion was. Astragalus polysaccharide treatment improved proliferation and insulin secretion in high glucose and palmitic acid treated specific cells in mice, partially by promoting what's known as all these big things, and they're saying basically it actually promotes different gene expression. So it has an effect literally within the genetics of the beta cells within the pancreas. And so they're saying, yeah, this has the ability to be able to promote insulin secretion, particularly in people who are type 2 diabetic who have pancreatic fatigue. They can't produce enough insulin, so now they have to go on exogenous insulin because these beta cells have been completely fatigued. Isn't that amazing? Is that literally an herb that is natural has the effect to be able to help people with type 2 diabetes without taking a drug that is so harsh, like metformin is what it's called, so harsh on your system. Now here's another one. Astragalus polysaccharide reduces blood pressure, renal damage, and dysfunction through this specific immune system pathway. So here's what they said. Astragalus polysaccharide extract has been shown to exhibit antioxidant and anti-inflammatory potential in the treatment of several diseases. What they further said is, our data demonstrate that Astragalus significantly reduced blood pressure, it reduced the inflammatory response, it reduced renal fibrosis, which is basically scarring due to an inflammatory response in the kidneys. Furthermore, the levels of serum creatinine, blood urea nitrogen, and uric acid increased in DOCA salt-treated mice, alleviated by Astragalus administration. They said, our results suggest that Astragalus plays a beneficial role in improving renal dysfunction in hypertensive mice. Remember, I see a lot of people with renal damage. One of the ways you can go is go grab your blood work and then just go look at your glomerular filtration rate. And if that thing is starting to trend down below 80, for example, you have some kidney damage that's taking place. Well, what causes a decrease of blood being able to go through the kidneys? Guys, it's inflammation that is leading to scarring, that's leading to tissue damage. No different than if you're getting inflammation and scarring taking place in through the liver. So it happens systemically, especially when you have systemic inflammation. So here's what they found. Gosh, this lowers an inflammatory response in the kidneys, because if you have issues with the kidneys, you are in fact going to have higher blood pressure. But what I found was so interesting is it has the ability to be able to lower blood urea nitrogen. Remember, urea is produced from the liver with protein metabolism, but your kidneys are the ones that has to get rid of it. So if you see on your lab work that your blood urea nitrogen is high, think kidneys, kidneys, and kidneys. But also if you're having problems with an increase in uric acid. So if you have, increase in uric acid, I want you to think of kidney stones. I want you to think of, having the problems with your big toe getting all inflamed. You guys know what I'm talking about. So, even with high uric acid, everybody says, oh, you need to avoid purines. You need to avoid these things. I'm like, you don't need to avoid the purines. You have a problem with your kidneys. The problem with your kidneys is due to inflammation, okay? Quit trying to avoid all of these foods and try to get to the source of the inflammation. Now, I personally think that people who do have high uric acid problems have some gastrointestinal issues, because there are certain bacteria that, if there is a bad environment, can start to overgrow, and some of their metabolites can actually cause some damage and inflammation to the kidneys. Can Astragalus help with the kidneys? According to this, absolutely. But just remember this, guys, is, we will give this to people with the intention of them not needing it down the road. But yes, these are things that can help dig you out of a hole faster. And in fact, this is what our idea behind supplements is this. I told a woman this. Listen, I'm going to recommend a lot of stuff for you. But if this is not going down, then what I want you to do is I want you to fire me, because I'm not doing my job, or I'm going to fire you because you're not doing your job, and I don't want to dump a bunch of supplements into your system for the rest of your life. Because while we're doing this, we want to work on causes to allow the body to be able to start healing in an appropriate manner. Now, this one right here, there's a lot of big words, but here's what they say. So these right here are actually some of the constituents of Astragalus. But here's what they talked about, is that these constituents activate telomerase and protect the nucleus pulposus cells against high glucose-induced senescence and apoptosis. Okay? Now, there's a couple of big words in here, and I want you to stay with me. Guys, the nucleus pulposus is actually the center of your intervertebral disc. How many people do you know that have a disc herniation, a disc bulge, or have discogenic pain? I've had it before. It is absolutely terrible. It's absolutely miserable. You go to the surgeon says, we need to cut it out, we need to fuse it. And I see these people all the time, and they're like, yeah, it went away temporarily, but then it came back and I got worse. The reason why is they're not actually handling the cause. Guys, if you go in and you fuse a portion of the spine, above and below it, it has to work harder. You're only setting yourself up for having another disc herniation above and below because you permanently change the mechanics of it. But what they actually found is they said, well, high glucose environment, guys, a high glucose, high blood sugar, which is probably 2/3 of Americans today, a high blood sugar environment actually will damage the soft tissues. Now, you guys already know this because look at people who are diabetic and you'll see that they need joint replacements. They have very bad skin. Their joints are good. They're losing mobility, but they're also damaging what are known as the intervertebral disc. And you can actually induce disc damage if you have a high glucose environment and with a loss of motion at an individual disc level. Guys, this is why chiropractic is so amazing. We can do a flexion extension view, see what's working, what's not working, and start inducing motion back into that area to allow the disc to be able to heal. But that's where most chiropractors actually stop. What we're saying is you better check your blood sugar levels because high blood sugar will actually damage the cells and cause them to die early. So it decreases the lifespan of those cells. And how do they decrease the lifespan of those cells? Because they shorten the DNA, the end caps of the DNA. And as they shorten, it will just speed up what's known as programmed cell death. The amazing thing when they talk about Astragalus is that they say that Astragalus helps to protect those end caps of that DNA, which will extend the life of those cells within the nucleus pulposus of the intervertebral disc. Isn't that amazing? It is awesome. Now, do we want to work on the blood sugar issues? Absolutely, but this is something that will just enhance it. So here's what they said. They said this: these findings indicated that these constituents suppressed a high glucose stress-induced senescence and apoptosis, or programmed cell death, in addition to enhancing telomerase activation and lengthening of the telomere. It's anti-aging. Therefore, these constituents prolong the replicative capability and longevity of the nucleus pulposus cells, and they have the potential to be therapeutic agents in intervertebral disc herniations. Now, it's not just the intervertebral disc, it happens systemically. So Astragalus has the ability to be able to protect the body from increased aging, especially due to sugar, okay? Now, next week, I'll probably do a live video on why type 2 diabetes, the body adapts in that way to help protect you from cell death. You mean to tell me that if I have type 2 diabetes, it's actually my body trying to help me live longer? Yes, I am. Because the body never messes up, it never makes a mistake, and type 2 diabetes is a protective mechanism that eventually will kill you, but if it didn't try to adapt in that way, you would have died a lot sooner. Here's another one. All right, let's talk about fat loss, all right? Everyone's ears start to perk up when I talk about fat loss. Now, I'm going to talk about it a little bit different because here's what I said. Liposa pharmacopuncture, a new herbal formula affects localized adiposity by regulating lipid metabolism in vivo, meaning in the body, okay? Now, localized adiposity is a serious aesthetic problem and well-known risk factor. So what they mean is if you have a gut or you have fat on your hips, if you have fat on your thighs, what people do is they go in and they try to get liposuction, or they want to do some kind of detox wrap. They want to do something. And guys, I will tell you, when you look at this, the biggest problem is your hormones, your cortisol levels when it comes to depositing fat in certain areas. The hormones tell it where to go. The cortisol plays a big role in fat deposition as well as your liver, and there's some other things in regards to stress and blood sugar and things like that. But what they actually found is that people are like, well, I don't want to actually work really hard. Can we just go in and just inject some things directly into the fat to try to dissolve it? Now, this new treatment called Liposa actually uses what's known as Astragalus, and they found that when you inject the Astragalus within the fat, it helps to break down and to metabolize that localized fat that's deposited in that area. And now everyone is Googling. I can see this right now. about this liposuction treatment. It's not to promote this, but it even is to say that even astragalus has the ability to help with fatty acid metabolism. Don't take this the wrong way. Do it the right way, guys. So what did we guys actually talk about? What we talked about is we talked about the role of astragalus in cancer, the role of astragalus in diabetes, the role of astragalus in kidney inflammation and high blood pressure, the role of astragalus in pain in the intervertebral disc, which is leading to problems, guys, with longevity, or I would say healthy longevity. And then we even talked about fat metabolism. So we talked about a ton of things, and we didn't really even go into a lot even about the immune system and about stem cells. So think about all those different things. And I always wonder, is your doctor reading this? Are they keeping up on this? And are they recommending this? Or is it just, you need to be on this med, get your lifestyle in order, and if you don't, I'm going to wag my finger at you, and then I'm going to tell you to go on that cholesterol drug, go on that blood pressure medication, just go on that antidepressant, and then hopefully it helps, and if it doesn't, please don't come back because I don't know how to take care of it beyond that. But here's the hook, guys. Here's the hook, and this is going to blow you out of the water. We talked about all these different things, okay? And you would be like, wow, that's amazing. Look at all of that research that you found. All of this research that is found on PubMed that your doctor can read and has the liberty to be able to study and read it, all of this was published in October of 2021. So it was published in October or is getting ready to be published in November issues of different scientific periodicals. Isn't that amazing? So just what I went over is only about 4 to 6 weeks old. And there's so much more, guys. There's more articles on astragalus than there are actually on certain medications. And so the only thing is that they're not studying it here. They're studying it in other countries because they don't have the pharmacological influence financially for it. And so they're at liberty to be able to study these things. October of 2021. How incredible is that? Now, this is probably my favorite benefit, though, of astragalus. And it comes down to what's known as leukopenia. Leukopenia. Dr. Nate, where did you find this from? Well, I found it in Guyton and Hall's textbook of medical physiology. What I say? Medical physiology. This is in chapter 33. This book right here is about 1,000 pages long, and yes, I have read it. No, I did not use the Cliff Notes. But they talk about the idea of leukopenia, guys, and I don't like to use big words. I like to explain these words, what they mean, because these big words scare you. They're all done in Latin, and if you say, I have arthritis, you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds so complex. It's Latin for saying my joints hurt. I have inflammation in my joints. I have fibromyalgia. Oh my gosh, that sounds so complex. I have pain in my tendons and muscles and ligaments. That's what it means, okay? So we are so scared at these big words, or we use them as badges of honor, saying, look at the big, complex, medical diagnosis that I have, and if you translate it from Latin, you're like, whoops, maybe I shouldn't be so proud of that. So leukopenia literally is a loss of white blood cells or decreased white blood cells. Let's go back to medical textbook of physiology, and here's what they say. Normally, the human body lives in symbiosis with many bacteria because all the mucous membranes of the body are constantly exposed to large numbers of bacteria. They're there. They're everywhere. We're exposed all the time. You cannot get rid of them. In fact, you shouldn't try to avoid them. You should live in harmony and in balance. And how do you live in balance with them? You have enough white blood cells. So here's what they say. The mouth almost always contains varispirochetal, pneumococcal, and streptococcal bacteria. Really? You mean pneumonia and strep throat? Those are normal bacteria that live in my throat and in my lungs. Yes, it is. Absolutely. Who says so? Guyton's medical textbook of physiology. And these same bacteria are present to a lesser extent in the entire respiratory tract. The gastrointestinal tract is especially loaded with different colon bacilli. Guys, when you go from your mouth all the way down to your anus, you are chock full of bacteria. So why doesn't it kill us? Is because we have an immune system. So rather than try to avoid germs, you need to make sure, well, what are my immune system numbers at? What are my levels at? Do I have sufficiency of my immune system? Here's what they say. Any decrease in the number of white blood cells immediately allows invasion of the tissues by the bacteria that are already present in the body. Within 2 days of losing all of your white blood cells, after the bone marrow stops producing white blood cells, ulcers may appear in the mouth and in the colon, or the person develops some form of severe respiratory infection. Wow. You mean to tell me is that if I don't have enough white blood cells, that I might have a bad day with COVID-19? Absolutely. You mean to tell me that if I don't have enough white blood cells, that I have an increased risk of developing, of these cells being able to get through the barriers and then developing pneumonia? Absolutely. You mean to tell me that I could potentially die from pneumonia or die from COVID-19? Absolutely. And what's the reason why? It's leukopenia. It's a loss of white blood cells. You lost the ability to be able to fight the infection of even normal bacteria that live around your lung barriers and around your gastrointestinal barriers. See, what we're told is to avoid germs as much as possible. Avoid germs. Oh, you have strep throat, really. It's normal bacteria that live. So why does it get out of hand? Because your immune system has become suppressed. So rather than trying to avoid germs, why not figure out, why do I have a loss of white blood cells? There's a lot of different reasons why, guys. A lot of different reasons why. A lot of it can be related to lifestyle stress, sugar intake, chronic inflammation, gastrointestinal system, chronic liver inflammation. There's so many different reasons why, and including being chronically stressed. Heck, some of it is even medically induced, guys. So I'll give you a perfect example of medically induced leukopenia, okay? Now, here is a CD4, CD19, CD8 natural killer cell full immune panel, and we actually did this on a woman. This is, should I even say it? Okay, this is actually post you know what, okay? We actually had measured her immune system while she was on chemotherapy, okay? We measured her immune system on chemotherapy because she had a certain type of cancer. Well, one of the things that causes leukopenia, which is why if you're undergoing chemotherapy, why they measure your immune markers all the time, because the stem cells that are produced in the bone marrow are extremely sensitive to poisons and to toxins. They have a high metabolism, which means you put a poison in, they will uptake that very quickly and they'll die off a whole heck of a lot quicker than some of the other tissue cells. That's why one of the leading causes of immunodeficiency can be related to chemotherapy. Now, the other form of immunodeficiency is because if you have an autoimmune reaction and they're giving you things like methotrexate that will suppress the immune system, what do they say? They say if you take this long enough, it's going to lower the inflammatory response because it's going to knock out the immune system, but do it long enough, and then we'll be treating you for cancer later on because it suppresses the immune system that's responsible for tumor suppression as well. So in this, we saw an immune panel. During chemo, it was bad, and then we saw another one off of chemo after what would be called a second you-know-what, and look at this. Low absolute CD3 cells, which are your CD8 and your CD4, low CD4 cells, low lymphocytes. You saw low white blood cells in general. Also has some anemia markers as well. High eosinophils. There is something inside of her that is very irritating the immune system. A lot of times will stay high if cancer is still persisting within the body. But you look at this, the CD4 response, the B lymphocyte response, low white blood cells, which is called leukopenia in general. And you look at this, how on earth is this person supposed to mount a proper adaptive immune system response to a virus and also to cancer, okay? So in this case, is this actually induced by a chemical? And in my opinion, yes, it is. Now, when you look at this, can this person would they benefit from something like Astragalus? Yes, while we are identifying some of the biggest stressors inside the body, we did recommend Astragalus for her in order to start getting her white blood cells up, okay? So white blood cells are made in the bone marrow, and astragalus will feed the bone marrow. So hopefully, guys, you get an idea of how we start to think differently when it comes to the immune system, when it comes to stress, when it comes to inflammation, when it comes to rebuilding the body. We are experts when it comes to physical trauma. We're experts when it comes to chemical inflammation, and we're experts when it comes to even mental inflammation as well. I remember even talking to a woman the other day, as I just had to tell her, I said, the reason why you're sick is because you're a perfectionist. You're a perfectionist, and it's killing you, and it's stressing you out too much. The reason why I know is because I was a perfectionist too, and boy, did it really wear me down. She said, you know, you're right. It took me 40 years to finally realize that. So guys, if you found this interesting, please let me know, and please share this video as well. And also, guys, remember this, the webinar for Make Immune Systems Strong Again is going to be on Saturday, November 6th at 9 o'clock a.m. So I will be joining you, and we'll be going over everything that we've done. We've already done twice in person, but we're going to be going over the entire immune system. We'll be going over a couple of other things too around COV, et cetera, including some other things in regards to COV, et cetera, et cetera. But we're also going to show you too how to start standing up for your rights. And I may call some of you out, men. I may be calling you guys out to start standing up for your rights. But everything that we're going to do and go over is going to be researched. It is researched, okay? And so make sure, guys, that you get scheduled for that as well. We need 100 people minimum to be registered for that, just to be able to make it worth our time and our while because of the increase in staff and things like that. So please make sure that you get registered very soon for that. And we'll see you guys probably on Saturday at the webinar. And then actually on Sunday, I will be speaking up in the Chicago suburbs for the Children's Health Defense with Robert Kennedy Jr., who heads that up. And we'll be speaking about the most common test that will reveal the strength of your immune system. So we got a busy week that's coming up. Guys, thank you so much again for joining us. I always appreciate it. And I care for all of you. I appreciate your kind words always. I always appreciate even your criticisms as well. I know that I'm not perfect, and I know that I have a lot to improve on as well. So I appreciate even for those people who are, intend to be mean, but I always take it to heart. So guys, if I jump back on, it's probably going to be to show you my burpees. So guys, make sure you also join the Wellness Way Lifestyle group with the Mandate Burpees Challenge. We'll see you guys in there, hopefully as well. I'll be on there this week, and then we'll see you guys on Saturday for the immune system webinar. All right, guys, be well. I appreciate all your shares, and we'll talk to you guys very soon.